Let me tell you about a teenager. We'll call her nobody in particular because she's basically every kid in America right now. A year ago, if she wanted onto a website her state decided she was too young for, she lied. She clicked a little arrow, picked a birth year that made her 22, and that was the entire heist. No skills required, no trace left. The whole thing took less time than tying a shoe. Today, that same girl can build a photorealistic government ID from scratch using a free tool she found in 90 seconds. She can forge a face that doesn't exist. She can slip a fabricated legal document past an automated checkpoint that a Fortune 500 company paid real money to install. She went from casual liar to competent forger, and she never wanted to. She was pushed there. Somebody in a state legislature pushed her there and then went home feeling like a hero. That's the story nobody's telling about age verification laws. Everyone framed this as a fight about protecting children. It was never that. What it actually turned into is the largest accidental training program for digital fraud in modern history, funded entirely by the people who swore they were making the internet safer. So let's walk through exactly how a well-meaning idea became a machine for manufacturing criminals, because the mechanics of this failure are almost too perfect to be real. Start with the core misunderstanding because everything downstream flows from it. Lawmakers looked at the internet and saw a building, one structure, one entrance, put a guard at the door and check IDs clean. Physical, intuitive. The problem is the internet isn't a building. It's more like weather. It's everywhere at once. It moves around obstacles by default, and the second you wall off one path, it simply roots around you without even noticing you were there. Regulating it like a nightclub was never going to work because the whole thing is Windows. It's nothing but windows. You board up the front door and you haven't sealed anyone in. You've just made everyone learn where the windows are. And boy, did they learn fast. The clearest proof showed up in the App Store charts almost instantly. A state would sign one of these verification mandates into law on a Tuesday. And by Wednesday morning, the top of the download charts had rearranged itself, not around the regulated platforms, around VPN's virtual private network apps. Tools for disguising where your traffic comes from were suddenly outranking Instagram, outranking TikTok, sitting at #1 in states that had just passed the law. People who had never in their lives thought about an IP address were now bouncing their evening browsing through a server in some other country because a lawmaker accidentally told them to. Think about what that actually represents. These politicians believed they were installing a lock. What they installed was the greatest free advertising campaign the VPN industry has ever received. Every verification bill was, functionally, a commercial. And here's where the safety pitch doesn't just weaken, it inverts completely, flips upside down, and starts working against itself. Because a person browsing a regulated domestic platform is, at minimum, on a service with some oversight, some accountability, some legal exposure if it mishandles their data. The moment that same person installs a random free VPN to dodge an ID check, all of that protection evaporates. A huge share of free VPNs make their money by quietly harvesting and selling exactly the data they promise to hide. So in the name of privacy, the government herded millions of ordinary people off of monitored platforms and onto anonymous offshore servers run by developers accountable to no one. People are now shipping their full browsing history, their passwords, their private messages to strangers in another jurisdiction, specifically to avoid uploading one photo of their ID. The medicine is more dangerous than the disease it was prescribed for. Now here's the part that should really bother you, because it's where the whole thing stops being funny. A brand new industry appeared out of thin air to feed on this. The third-party verification middlemen. Their pitch to websites is seductive. Don't touch this legal mess yourself. Let us handle the IDs, we'll take on the liability. Sounds responsible. But ask the obvious question that apparently nobody in government asked. Who verifies the verifiers? Because what you've got now is a swarm of unregulated startups, most of them younger than the laws that created them, suddenly sitting on mountains of the most sensitive material a person owns. Government documents, selfies. Biometric face scans, the geometry of your actual face, a password you can never change. And these companies frequently have security that's, to put it kindly, catastrophic. They aren't fortresses, they're honeypots, bright, sticky, irresistible targets stuffed with exactly what criminals want most. Researchers have already popped the hood on tools that marketed themselves as privacy first and found them doing the opposite, logging device details, tracking browsing behavior, packaging it all for advertisers. Read the irony carefully, because it's almost artistic. A law written specifically to stop unauthorized data collection ended up forcing people to hand their most permanent, most unchangeable personal information to the least trustworthy operators in the entire tech economy. Your driver's license became a commodity traded on the back end of a system you never consented to join. Which brings us back to our forger and to the darkest thread in this whole thing. Once websites demanded photographic proof of a real ID, the underground didn't panic. It innovated. Anonymous forums and encrypted chat groups filled up overnight with AI-generated ID templates, synthetic identities, deepfake face generators, an entire toolkit purpose-built to defeat automated checks. And the users of these tools are, disproportionately, the exact children the laws claim to protect. Free AI is now spitting out state IDs convincing enough to glide past any checkpoint lazy enough to accept a static upload with no live face scan. The system meant to stop kids instead recruited them into synthetic media and document forgery. And the speed of that recruitment is genuinely alarming the security professionals watching it happen. And this is the connection that turns the whole story from embarrassing to dangerous. Those same forgery tools didn't originate in some teenager's bedroom. They were already carving through the financial system long before any of this. Synthetic identities are the standard weapon for opening fraudulent bank accounts and slipping past crypto regulations. That criminal infrastructure was mature, professional, already humming along. What age verification laws did was open a floodgate and pour millions of ordinary, non-criminal people directly into it. They handed an established fraud industry a tidal wave of fresh demand and simultaneously trained a whole generation in the everyday habit of faking their own identity just to get online. You do not walk that back. Once a 16-year-old knows how to fabricate a legal document to read a web page, that knowledge doesn't expire on their 18th birthday. So let's total up the ledger, because the scoreboard is brutal. Before these laws, kids lied on a drop-down menu, and that was the whole problem. After these laws, ordinary people install malware-adjacent VPNs, route their lives through unaccountable foreign servers, feed their biometrics to insecure startups, and generate deepfake documents, all to preserve a sliver of the anonymity they used to have for free. The internet didn't get safer. It got more surveilled, more complicated, and genuinely more dangerous. In a world where your private information is now the currency everyone's fighting over, and notice precisely who pays for it. It is never the people the law was aiming at. The determined ones, the ones actually accessing restricted content, clicked past every barricade using instructions they found on a Reddit thread 5 minutes ago. They were never inconvenienced for a second. The people who actually got hurt are the rule followers. The honest ones who did what they were told, uploaded their passport to some unsecured database, and trusted the system. They took on all the risk and received none of the protection. That's the cruel signature of this entire policy. It punished compliance and rewarded evasion. None of this required a crystal ball to predict. It's the oldest lesson in technology, and it never stops being true. When you try to force digital behavior by decree, without understanding the technology underneath, you don't eliminate the thing you're afraid of. You just make the workaround more popular than it ever would have been on its own. Lawmakers set out to build a wall around the internet. All they actually accomplished was handing out the blueprints for every ladder. Anyway, that's the video. If it made you think, hit like, drop a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.